So I don't know if anybody's on Google YouTube right now on my account, but it should be broadcasting. I wouldn't worry about that because I'm going to see if I can screen share and save it again and get rid of this. Yeah. It's broadcasting, okay. Fingers crossed that it stays connected, and so you have to mute it for the classroom, but it'll be getting feedback. Good. One thing works. This other stuff will work too. I'm not sure what happened to it. You just gotta, it's like a lot of things on here, you just gotta keep trying it and making sure it works. So I want to move now on to talking about lesson planning. I said this course is designed to, the intention is to get you to use ICT to teach all other aspects of the curriculum, right? How can I use ICT to teach everything else in the curriculum? And they call it the ICT continuum, right? What's a continuum? It's something that goes from here and moves across over to here. So it's basically, the idea is that everybody's IT skills are on a continuum. Some have a little bit over here, some have a way lot over here, but most of us are somewhere on the continuum. And the idea is that that's where we're always ever going to be. Nobody's ever going to be finished because it's moving too fast. You can't stay ahead of it. So the intention is to get people to operate within their capability on that continuum, with the intention of, moving yourself along the continuum and developing it even more. So that's true for ourselves as teachers, but also we're expected to do that for our students, encourage that in our students, develop that capacity to use ICT productively, safely, powerfully. So again, that's what we're going to do in this class, is we're going to develop 4 lessons using ICT. And I've gone through them a little bit, and we worked out that your concept mapping tool, the MindMeister tool, the other day. And I mentioned there's going to be 4 lessons. We're going to do one that's on a video, one that's using maps, one that's using podcasting or audio, and another one that's using collaborative applications of some kind. And that's what I thought I'd start with today. And I'm going to do that this week. Every day this week, I'm going to introduce one of the lessons and introduce the technology that you're going to need to use to develop this lesson, and hopefully give you enough time to get an idea to get started on each lesson this week, so that as we go along, you can, stay up to speed fairly well. As I said, this is worth 40% of the mark. 4 lessons. So it goes together with the planning of the lesson, plus developing an example of something that you're going to do, whether that's a video or a map or a podcast, or today we'll start on collaborative documents or collaborative activities. And when we look at lesson planning, one of the big values now is collaboration. And got to sort of separate the terms out a little bit, the difference between collaboration, cooperation, and competition, right? And of course, team playing, competition is a big part of society, and that's good for some things, but for most things in learning, cooperation and collaboration are preferred. And the difference between cooperation and collaboration is we all work together, but we have our own goals, right? Collaboration is we all work together on a shared goal. And this is supposedly in education, this is the value that they're trying to put across. This is what the Manitoba curriculum designers have been directed to do, is try to encourage and incorporate collaboration as much as you can possibly do. So everybody learns how to compete, but learning how to collaborate is an acquired skill as well. So we have to develop the capacity, and that's kind of the way, I guess, society works as well too. Encouraging collaboration it's a societal value. So anyway, we've got this built in. Many of the things that we use in ICT are perfect for collaboration. They're designed for collaboration. I mentioned before, the internet is basically a social space, right? It's a conversation with other people or other machines, but for us, mostly we're interested in the part that's a conversation with other people, whether that's sharing information, sharing social stuff, whether that's, buying stuff, marketplace, uh, friendships, mutual support, all those different things. That's all built into the internet, and that's part of the whole intention, is that it's a platform for learning collaboratively. So we all work together on a shared goal. So wanted to look at a few of the things where it says that in the Manitoba curriculum. We sort of quickly looked at some of the things in the Manitoba curriculum, and I think if you're working in the program, everybody said they were familiar with this website. And if you're not, you should be, and I hope everybody's bookmarked this on the top of their web page too, as you see where I had it up here on top of here. I put it on as a page along the top, because this is going to be your go-to space as you're doing the lesson planning for all these things. So we've got this, and this is the government's website, and it's kind of rough in some places. In fact, I don't know if you've been following the news in the last little while. They just started a new committee to revive the whole Manitoba curriculum for Manitoba. They set up a committee. One of the guys is Mark Friesen, the guy that's the president of ACC in town here. He's on that board. Another old cowboy that was on the last progressive conservative government 20 years ago. He's on the board again. What they call him, scissor hands. It's not good. It's not a good thing. Anyway, they're going to redo the whole curriculum. There's no question that it needs redoing, because it's way out of date, especially with respect to technology. Anything related to technology, it's 20 years ago, so out of date. In fact, the computer science curriculum for Manitoba curriculum now still talks about things like floppy disks. Anybody use a floppy disk? Anybody remember a floppy disk? You remember them, right? When was the last time you saw one? Probably not a long time for sure. I got a whole pile of them collecting dust someplace at home, but I think I still do have a floppy disk reader that I could rig up if I had to, but it's old technology. So that's just an example of where the state of that curriculum is, computer science curriculum. So it really does need updating for sure. So whether this crew is going to be able to, I don't know. Actually, I have confidence in some of the people on that board, because they are. Mark Friesen, of course, of ACC, is very tech savvy. He knows what people need what skills people need to have to be successful. So if he can keep old Scissorhands from chopping things up, might turn out to be not too bad. Some of the things that the Manitoba curriculum, they've been doing piecework as they've gone along for years. The ELA curriculum is actually quite recent, quite current, quite up to date. Everybody's working on it. Things like Indigenous education, of course, they've been working on that. That's in the last 10 years ago, they've been working on that fairly strong. Some of that arts education and music education, those seems to stay fairly current and good. So, but again, some of them need some pretty heavy duty work. One of the challenges I put to you the other day was, pick what is your subject area going to be when you go teaching. What area are you going to teach? And what grade level are you going to teach? Because now I'm hoping as we do this lesson planning, this is going to be a very practical thing for you when you go on the job. And if you get to teach in your preferred space, grade and level and subject area, you will have a little bit of a leg up already and ready to roll. But anyway, we looked at, just click through some of the different things. I think we looked at the science one here, and all of the way it's laid out, the curriculum documents that are available in the science subject matter area, the levels that are available. So grade, kindergarten to 4, 5 to 8, grade 9, then senior levels, and then the various, when they get into high school, it breaks out into the various topics or subject areas by topic. But say we're looking at, say, grade, and I think we did this the other day, we looked at grade 5 to 8 science curriculum. And again, you should know that and recognize that it's organized by clusters. Thematic clusters. In the case of grade 5 science, cluster 1 is maintaining a healthy body. Cluster 2, properties of and changes of substances. Cluster 3, forces and simple machines. Cluster 4, weather, so on and so forth. All these different clusters that are available. So within each one of these clusters, though, is learning objectives, right? So when I'm trying to teach somebody with respect to cluster 1, maintaining a healthy body, I'm going to design lessons that work around each of the different learning objectives. So there's general learning objectives, and then there's specific learning objectives. And as you drill down into this, curriculum framework for outcomes, you can actually see, where was I, grade 5, specific, cluster 0, we'll scroll down, you can see you get down to the general learning objectives, and then even more specifically down to the specific learning objectives. So what I want you to do for this class is to design a lesson for a specific learning objective, as if this was one 50-minute class that you're going to deliver one day. So I want you to be able to focus down, and that, I think I mentioned this too, this is the objective I have for you too, is that when you get on the job, your first year, you're going to be planning lessons. That's what you're going to do. And probably you're going to be planning the night before for the lesson that you're going to deliver tomorrow. So it's a hell of a lot of work. And unless you've got a system, it can be crippling. So, but fortunately, we've got tools like these that I'm going to show you that make that comparatively simple, especially if you get a systematic approach to it. Of course, that's what they're trying to teach you here too, is a systematic approach to lesson planning. And I'm hoping to teach you a systematic lesson planning that incorporates ICT, which again is the expectation that they have of you to use ICT to teach everything, but also use ICT to support your own learning and to support your own professional practice. So that's what we're looking for in terms of the curriculum objectives. One of the curriculum items is this, it's not just a straight curriculum item, it's something where they expect you to use IC to teach everything else, including ICT. But never will you be expected to just teach ICT for the sake of teaching ICT. There is a purpose for it, there's a reason for it. So that's why they've sort of framed this to literacy with ICT across the continuum. So yeah, you want to explore this a little bit too as we go along and start designing your lessons. We're going to pick out an objective for each lesson. And as I said, the lesson is going to be, you're going to be planning a lesson that's based on the expectation that it's a 50-minute lesson, what you deliver in one school day, but specific to the Manitoba curriculum and incorporating this ICT or learning with ICT across the model. So the things that and if you go to this website and you explore it, and you should too, look around it, they've updated and adapted a little bit. The earlier one is here too. They've recently modified this and updated it, which is a good thing. It means that they're sort of watching this thing and keeping track of it and making sure that it stays reasonably current. And so far it seems good. They've had a big change in the way that they look at some of the things, but they've broken it down into a model, the model of ICT with the continuum, and then specific areas of this ICT continuum that they want to talk about. Mostly two general areas, health and safety and ethics and responsibility. So they want people to use the ICT productively, but safely and ethically. And I guess that's, sort of a, common observation that you can make. Well, the kids all know how to use the internet, but they know how to use it appropriately, productively, safely. And Where do they learn how to do that? At home? Well, not necessarily, because probably lots of parents don't know how to do that these days. Some do, some don't. But anyway, so that's the objective here. So when we look at this, the model, here's the ICT model, the activities that you're going to do and are going to be based on these activities. So reflect, question and plan, gather and make sense, produce to show understanding, communicate. These are all sort of tasks that are related to using ICT.
So when you ask, like I'm just thinking notes, like I do teach kindergarten. I do a lot of stuff on posters, like paper. Are you just wanting us to like put that as a model in here, how we would teach it, and like it was really like say science and trees, the difference between trees with like pine needles versus one with leaves, and I, you know, like, and then just plot that in here because we don't honestly use a lot of technology in kindergarten, right? But
you'd be surprised how much technology your kindergartners use. Lots, probably.
No,
and
like,
more and more.
With regards to like the presentation, the
lesson
plan that you want.
Yeah, this lesson plan, what I'm hoping for is that you understand what's expected of you as a teacher, what you're expected to use this continuum for, right? And how to incorporate it into an actual lesson plan. We'll use 4, for example, so they give you a chance to explore. And I would encourage you to explore different levels too, whether it's kindergarten or other levels and other subject areas too. Even though you think you might want to be teaching just science or just math or just history, try another subject area just so you get familiar with the curriculum.
So you want us to, like, when you say incorporate technology into the classroom, you want it to be as a tool for us or as a tool that we're getting our students to use?
Yeah, both. As I said, this continuum applies multiple levels, and you can see how they've got it laid out here too. You know, you got it for teachers, for school leaders, for parents, for resources. So this is kind of a multi-targeted thing, and we're just talking about the teachers at this point.
Right.
So, yeah, I'll just explore a little bit too, and we'll come back to that, of course. But so the health and safety aspect. So if you're looking at this continuum based on this, here's what they're talking about: health and safety guidelines, physical health, of course, but more importantly, with respect to this, social and emotional health. So, are you finding it? You got it? Okay. Okay, and so for example, some of the tasks that they're describing here is establishes appropriate balance between time spent alone using technology, time spent interacting with family and friends, time spent on personal well-being. So don't stay in the basement playing video games all day long, right? Trying to make sure that people understand that there's use of technology can have social and emotional and even physical health effects. So, and then safety, of course, things like managing identity. What we've already done here is trying to use and, you know, come to understand that what we share online and what's available, the information that's available about us online is probably not private and probably never will be ever again. Much as we try and hard as we try, we're kind of down that road already. So now it's a question of managing privacy and managing the impact of that. So so managing identity, your personality on your identity online, whether that's a professional identity, personal identity, maintaining the two, particularly for teachers. That's an important thing, is to try to maintain some division between your personal online behavior and your professional online behavior. Can be a challenge. And then, of course, privacy. All these things are issues that are, you know, recognized issues that they've tried to incorporate into and encourage teachers to build into their teaching with ICT. Dangerous behaviors. What's dangerous online? So distracted driving, of course, is a thing that pops to the line. Cyberbullying, other threats to safety, child porn, all these different things that they that are sort of, you know, I don't know if they're urgent concerns most of the time, but it's things that people need to be aware of. Things that need to, when you're using ICT, these are some of the risks and hazards. Then another one is another area, general area that they've identified here is the ethics and responsibility. So how to use this, respecting privacy of for yourself and for others. Society's right to information access against an individual's right to privacy. How do we balance that off? How do we make sure that we have access to all the information we need, but without jeopardizing somebody else's privacy or rights? Intellectual property rights. So if I come up with a good idea, well, you can use it, but give me credit for it. So same old thing. The rights of others to have their own perspective. And this is a big challenge in society today. We really get divided into factions that one group believes this way and one group believes that way, and there's no middle line. And it's actually becoming quite destructive. So, yeah, it's always been an issue, I guess, but even more so, it seems, in the day of social media. It's easier to get divided into camps that are just at each other's throats. So it's up to us. So hopefully teachers can come to terms with that inside themselves, and then teach others how to have a more open perspective, whether to entertain other people's point of view and express your point of view without getting the guns out, basically. So, and then assess the potential impact of decisions and actions on self. So these are kind of all objectives for when you're planning lessons that you need to consider as you're planning them. Go back and look at the continuum itself. And I just clicked on that toolbar across the top there. You should see something like this. So now there's sort of a vector arrangement, right? So one is the task, the various tasks that we're going to use or expected to use as objectives for designing lessons. And then across the top is the level of expectation that we have for these. So of course, earlier years, you probably won't have the same high or increasing expectations that you have of later years, right? So that's where these are sort of based. And if you look at them and read them through, you'll see that they kind of, they're on a continuum themselves, right? So as you move across, the tasks get more complex, or the expectations of people completing those tasks get more complex. So we're looking at starting with question and plan. And they've got it actually broken out into specific little identifiers for each node, and that's what I'm going to ask you to do. As I mentioned before, I'm going to ask you to plan a lesson for collaborative activity that's specific, down to the specific learning objective, the thing that you would teach on one day's lesson, and identified by the number that's in the Manitoba curriculum for that specific learning objective. And then blend that with the learning objective as expressed in the ICT continuum. So depending on what your lesson is, whether your lesson involves questioning and planning, gathering and making sense, producing to show understanding, communication, reflection, all these sort of are the tasks that you're expecting people to do as they're learning this information. And then how well do you expect them to do it? So across the top here is sort of as increasing expectations that you have of these for each of these levels. So basically, if we're starting with question and plan, Q.1.1, Q-.1 recalls and or records prior knowledge, constructs questions with assistance. So if your lesson is based on having your students question and plan, make a plan to do something, and of course today we're talking about collaboration. So if the idea is to question and plan with respect to doing something collaboratively, what level do you expect them to do it at? Is it early years? So then if it's early years, it's probably going to be something like this Q1.1. Whereas if you're moving across here, you'll see that the complexity of the task increases as you go along. So if you're planning a lesson for, say, middle years, the expectation is that when you plan this lesson, whatever it is, the specific learning objective, and incorporate ICT into it, For middle years, you should probably be shooting for something like Q-1.3. And in that case, it says, identifies information needs and constructs complex questions, how, what, how, why, what if. And then, of course, if you're teaching high school, the expectations are even more. The complexity of the task gets more and more as you go along. So as you're planning lessons, that's the expectation. You wouldn't expect high school students just to go search for stuff on the internet. That doesn't make any sense. They can do that. That doesn't develop any capacity in them because they have more advanced needs and skills and capabilities. Anybody recognize these terms? Recall and record. Constructs questions, evaluates and questions. Recognize those terms at all? Remember, do you come across Bloom's taxonomy? Yeah. You've seen Bloom's, that's Bloom's taxonomy, right? And that's sort of the science that's behind this, part of the science that's behind this learning continuum. So the expectation is that you're going to do certain tasks and that you're going to expect your students to learn them to a certain level, depending on their age, their prior experience, and their capabilities. So that's, as you're planning your lessons, again, you're picking out a particular subject area. You're picking out a particular general learning objective within that subject area. You've chosen your grade. You've drilled down to a specific learning objective, this lesson that you're going to deliver today, tomorrow, and how you're going to do it. So what you're going to do is figure out what ICT tools can we use to deliver this particular lesson. Keeping in mind that we also need to identify where we are on this ICT continuum. Is the task questioning and planning? Is the task gathering and making sense? Is the task producing to show understanding? And probably for lots of things that you do, it'll be to produce to show understanding. If we're talking about collaboration, it might be communication. So, and again, depending on what level you're shooting for, what expectation would you have within this ICT continuum? So when you put things together like that, it's a multi-targeted approach to things. And when I did this the other day, when we put this lesson plan up, and I'll just go to the one that I kind of used as a demonstration and go to the actual lesson plan itself and make it as big as I possibly can. Where is it? So I gotta actually sign into it. I'll go to it here. We'll do that. I signed myself out. That's a mistake. Now I gotta go find all my stuff. I restarted my computer. Okay, sorry. Well, while we're talking about it, I'll show you what I do. This is how I manage my passwords. I have to log into my MindMeister password. I didn't save it as a logged in site on this computer because I'm not on my own computer right now. So I have a thing called, I use Kaspersky. I use it for lots of different things, but I'm going to use Kaspersky for passwords. So I'm going to open up my password manager. I hope. And I'm going to put I have to remember one password to this password manager. And it saves all my passwords for everything else within an encrypted password tool. I hope. I'm going to move that. So now I've got to find my MindMeister password. Start typing it. here's my MindMeister password that's saved in my Kaspersky password manager. I don't know what it is. It says here, I could look at it. That's what it looks like. Who cares? I never ever look at my passwords anymore. All I do is just copy them. So now I'll go back to my MindMeister account. I want it where I'm logging in, and it's actually, as soon as I opened up my password manager, it filled in the forms for it. So I'm going to log in. And I'm going to go to the lesson planning map that I was trying to look at here. So. Okay. I want to show my whole map. Where is it? Recent. Let's go to recent. This one. Okay, so this is the. Spoke to that. We did this the other day. Everybody created a map and set it up so that you've got four main nodes off. So the main node is going to be your lesson plans for this class, and then you set up separate nodes for each one of the lessons that you're going to plan. And then we use the MindMeister lesson planning template, which actually is pretty good. We're going to customize it and change it a little bit, but it's one that's been developed by professional teachers just for this exact purpose of planning lessons. Some of the terminology is going to be different, but basically they are always expecting to. I should have closed these all up. Why not? Let me close these and we'll start from scratch on this. So within each lesson, we have sort of four main areas that we're going to want to work on as we develop a lesson. Again, I'm hoping that you're going to adopt this and get systematic about planning your lessons, because if you do it, as I said, it's going to save you a lot of grief when you start doing this on a daily basis. How am I going to plan tomorrow's lesson? Oh my God. Well, just go and fill out the form. It's all on there. So the objectives, we're starting with objectives. So lots of different ways of looking at this, lots of different things to consider. But of course, we have to, first of all, get something from the Manitoba curriculum. Whatever, again, for this particular lesson that you're going to plan for this class, using collaborative documents, what subject area you're going to use, what grade level are you going to use. Go find a general learning objective that says that using a collaborative approach is the appropriate way to teach this, and then list that objective. So, and again, remember the expectation for each of these lessons is one 50-minute lesson for one class, one day's class, and be able to drill down to that level.
In French, that's comparable to a has, like a specific, in English it's what a specific result, like it's a result, like it's a proof of that the curriculum asks, right? Like those are those coded, like one CR5.
Yeah. Whatever. Yeah. So they have general learning objectives, GLOs, right? Or specific learning objectives. So the general learning objectives is broader, usually within a unit, or what did we see before? They called it they have different terms for different subject areas.
Right.
But when they drill right down to the specific learning objective, that's the daily delivery, the expectation for daily delivery. And that's what I'm looking for here. Plan a lesson for daily delivery. As I said, then we also have to consider the Manitoba ICT continuum. And remember, the couple of things that we wanted to look at was the health and safety aspects of it. What do I have to consider with respect to health and safety? Think about that. And then what do I have to think about with respect to ethics and responsibility in delivering this particular lesson? Sometimes the impact will be less or more based on that. And then using that chart, what do I want to do? What's the activity that we're going to do in this class? When we do things, when I plan this collaborative lesson for this one-day thing, what am I doing? Am I producing to show understanding? Am I communicating? And am I reflecting? Whatever. It's going to be your choice to design this too. But you need to articulate that. As part of your lesson planning, you need to say what it is you intend to do. And we'll talk about more about that too. That's sort of the professional teacher's responsibility, is to be able to be very specific about what you're doing when you're lesson planning. So, and then again, what level are you working with? What group are you working with? So what could you expect from them? What level of accomplishment would you expect from that particular group doing this particular task? And as I said, we have things like Bloom's taxonomy, which is the basis for that continuum. Lots of resources, and I've included them here. This just goes basically to Wikipedia's definition of Bloom's taxonomy. And within Bloom's taxonomy, he said that there's three kinds of learning that we have to consider all the time. We've got to consider cognitive learning, right? So the cognitive domain, which is the thinking domain, right? That's our intellectual domain. And that's probably what most of the time we think of teaching is we're teaching within the cognitive domain. We're teaching stuff, right? That's only part of it. Then there's the affective domain. So what is the affective domain? That's your values, that's your, and probably the most important aspect of that for teachers and consideration is, can you instill confidence in your students? Can you instill in your students the confidence that they can learn? Because if you got a student that has low self-esteem, has had poor experiences with learning, they come into it defeated right off the bat, they say, oh, I can't possibly learn that. So part of our jobs as teachers is to make sure that we make it possible for them to learn and that they get some empowerment. They understand that they can control their own learning and can be successful. And then finally, the other one in the Bloom's taxonomy that we don't see too much in the ICT continuum, actually kind of falls short a little bit. The older version did consider the psychomotor domain a little bit, but the newer version has kind of let that go somewhat. That's too bad, because it's, so what's psychomotor? What does that mean, psychomotor? Have you come across that term? So it's how our brains tell our hands to do something, or how our brains tell our bodies to do something. So for example, a task that might be in the psychomotor domain is learning how to do a slap shot if you're playing hockey. How do you learn how to do a slap shot? You read a book. How do you teach somebody to do a slap shot? Do you do a presentation on it? Yes, show them, model them, shape their behavior. So there's lots of techniques, teaching techniques that are specific to the psychomotor domain that really have nothing to do with the cognitive domain. Probably have something to do with the affective domain though. If I want to teach somebody to do a slap shot, first thing I say, yeah, you can do it, man. You can do it. Let's go. I'll show you how. It's easy. Come on. So teaching things in the psychomotor domain, you can't really use the tools of the cognitive domain, right? Because we can't expect somebody to read a paragraph on taking a slap shot. Although, now, ICT changes that a little bit. Because remember I told you about a YouTube video? We had this old saying that says a picture paints 1,000 words, but a YouTube video paints 10,000 words. A 5-minute YouTube video. You could actually probably teach somebody how to do a slap shot using a YouTube video. Take your iPad out to the garage, go up against the wall, watch the video, try and do what's on the video. Watch it again. Pause it here. Rewind it, listen again. So teaching in the psychomotor domain actually becomes quite possible using ICT. So anyway, other things about Bloom's, I linked on here, and you might want to look this up too. Just go to my page and find this too. Using Bloom's taxonomy to write effective learning objectives. So there's a hierarchy to learning, right? And that's what Bloom's is all about, really, is defining this hierarchy and trying to make it possible to plan to teach people at different levels of the hierarchy. So here they've said that starting with the most basic level, let me see if I can go a little larger on this too. Remember is the most basic part of learning. That's the most basic learning task that we can do, is remembering something. Did I tell you that? Did I tell you what the overflow icon is? Did you remember? At this point, for that, all I expect is that you remembered it, right? Did learning occur? Well, I'll test, I'll ask, what's the overflow icon? If you remember, we say that you've learned it, okay? Then understanding. So it's not enough just that you recognize the word overflow icon, that this guy said that before. What is it? What does that mean? What does it do? So do I understand it? Then applying it. Well, can I use the overflow icon, my knowledge of the overflow icon, to actually go look at the overflow icon and do stuff with it? Analyzing. Oh, is this overflow icon the same as that overflow icon? Can I do this task within this overflow icon that I can do in this one? So, and then evaluating. Oh, geez, that's a crappy overflow icon. They need to fix that. And then, of course, finally making a better overflow icon, if this was the task that was prescribed. So that's my little example working through. But the expectations at every level, expectations for learning at every level get increasingly complex. So as you're planning lessons, you have to make sure that you're, expressing the expectation you have for your students and planning your lesson around that expectation. So. Again, they've got lots of resources that are available for this. This one is actually quite good. Most of this is based on, as you're planning lessons, it's based on the verbs that you use to describe what you want people to do. So if it's a lower level thing, you want somebody just to remember or to recognize. So that's what multiple choice tests are good for, mostly, and that's about all they're good for. That's not true. Depends how you build a multiple choice test. But mostly, you're testing very fundamental, basic level of learning, right? Remembering and understanding, maybe applying. That's about all you can test with a multiple, conventionally built multiple choice test. But most of the time, if you've spent lots of time designing and creating lessons that are shooting for higher levels of the Bloom's taxonomy, higher levels of the learning domains, you want to have a better way of figuring out if people have accomplished what the task that you've expected. So just keep this in mind as you're developing your lessons. How well do you expect your students to learn this? Do you expect them to just understand something or apply something, or do you expect them to evaluate something? And probably for most of what we do in school, K to 12, evaluating is probably as high as we get for the most part. When we start looking at creating, we're talking about the highest levels of the Bloom taxonomy. That's what's expected of you, right? Is creating things. So understanding all the lower levels, but then at the working towards the higher levels too.
What we're learning right now is slightly different.
Yes, there's lots of different versions of it for sure.
Like it's called Bloom's, but evaluation is at the top, and synthesis is just below. So there's a little.
Yeah, you'll find probably half a dozen different versions of it.
Oh.
Some of it are Bloom's, some of them, and I've tried to link to a couple of them on here too. Other systems, for example, Webb's depth of knowledge chart, similar idea.
Right.
Hess's cognitive matrix chart, and you might come across these in other classes and courses, but for this one, yeah, if you've got a different framework for understanding this as you design your lesson, just specify it and say that's what I'm shooting for. I'm using this framework for understanding. Yeah, so, but main thing at this point is that you have to, in your lesson, express what level of accomplishment you want your students to have. So this one. What else? Okay, as we're going through this, we're looking for the prerequisites. What do we need to know before these students can participate? As you're designing this lesson, this is what I want you to look at, setting the context, setting the hook. How do you get people interested? How do you keep their attention focused on it? First of all, gaining attention is probably the biggest task. Then setting the hook. How do you make them want to learn this, right? One of my favorite sayings is that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, right? Heard that expression? Well, the thing that goes with that is you can put salt in their oats. So that's mostly what your job is when you're teaching, especially schools and kids these days. You're putting salt in their oats. You're making them thirsty. You're making them want to learn. And that's the mark of a good teacher. Can you put salt in their oats? Can you make them curious? Can you make them want to learn? So I'll review this a little bit as we go along too. What resources do we need to use? If it's an ICT thing, what applications we need to use? What applications use collaborative approaches? And then we'll go through a few of them today just before we wrap up. Google Docs, of course, is one of them. That's all Google stuff is pretty much designed for collaboration. MindMeister, we can use MindMeister collaboratively, and we will. Different things like what's called Etherpads. So these are collaborative spaces where people can go into that collaborative space. Everybody can work in there. All their work can be recognized, and it's an easy place to synthesize the work. So we'll play around with a few of those. So. As you're planning resources, of course, then you have to, as you're designing a lesson, what do I need? Well, I need a computer lab with computers that have access to the internet. I need students who have a Google account. And that means that I might have to get permissions, first of all, from my school, from my principal, from parents quite often, especially if it's kids under 13. Then there's another layer of permissions that you have to consider. Facilities. What do I need? I need a computer lab. I need a computer cart of some kind. I need the IT guys in my school to go along with this. I don't want them blocking YouTube from my class because, anyway. So those are considerations that you have to plan for as you're planning your lesson. You don't want to be doing this, the day that you're trying to teach your lesson. You want to have anticipated some of the things that you need. And then under notes, and again now, because you're planning, and you're not just planning for delivering this lesson one time, right? You're going to be teaching for years, right? For a few years. Hopefully your effort isn't, you're going to have to duplicate your effort every year. You're not going to have to plan your lessons again and again and again every year. Hopefully you'll be able to reuse some of this stuff. Ideally. Lots of it. Ideally most of it. Although, as you deliver a lesson, you'll realize that, some things didn't work. I couldn't get my extension to work on here. I got to make a note for that next time, do something a little different. So anyway, I'm looking for just the title of this particular lesson, the goal of this lesson, what I want to do, my objectives, and my reasoning. So in this case, of course, we can do things like the collaboration, communication, creativity, critical thinking expectations, general rules of why we're teaching things, right? What's the reasoning behind this particular activity, this particular lesson I'm planning? Well, it's working together on a collaborative activity, builds digital literacy, digital fluency, and that's right out of the learning continuum. Content, of course, then that's going to be specific to the lesson that you're dealing with. Method of instruction. How am I going to teach this? So, and again, you're developing teaching skills, different approaches to this. You might use things like a jigsaw method. Anybody come across that term yet? Now, it's actually specific for teaching collaborative activities, and we'll dig into this as we go along a little bit too. What instructional methodology are we going to use? Here, I think they talk about the 4 A's, right, or 3 A's. So acquire, apply, assess. What's the other one? Forgot already. Instructional methodology, and there's I put a link on here to different things, different instructional methodologies they might use. Instructor-led training, synchronous online learning, asynchronous online learning. What's the difference between synchronous and asynchronous? What does that mean, synchronous? Synchronous means like the clock, right? So if it's synchronous, it's happening at the same time. So in this class, we are learning synchronously. But if you learn off the video that I post later at another time, that's asynchronous learning. So you're learning at a different time than when the learning was presented, so the information was in. Self-instruction, performance support, blended learning, and these days, of course, for most of this ICT related, it's blended learning is the approach. So you might do a portion of it that's classroom, face-to-face classroom presentation, but another portion of it will be, the expectation is that they go do some online work using, say, a Google search or something like that. So, or building a map, or a podcast, or a video, all the things that we're learning in this class. So what you need to do is specify what's going to be your instructional method for this lesson. And then finally, in the method of evaluation, are you going to test whether they achieved your objective? Well, first of all, you want to know, did I teach it? That's the most important thing about assessment or evaluation. If I didn't teach it, they can't have learned it, right? So did I teach it? And if I'm pretty sure that I taught it, well, then I can ask myself, did they learn it? And those are two different things, right? Not, I can teach like crazy, but if you didn't learn it, well, then did I actually teach? No, hard to say. We gotta drill down on that. Anyway, as I said, as you're planning your lessons, these are the things I want you to ask yourself as you go through. So we can start with this on collaborative documents, and we'll start with this tomorrow. But I just want to introduce a little bit right now. Let's go look at this. So, for example, I'm going to go into and find a Google Doc, and I'm going to start a Google Doc. And remember, we looked in Google Drive, where you find your Google Docs all the time. I'm going to start a new document from a blank document. It's untitled, so I'm going to give it a title. I'm going to say Pent 2019 Practice. And I'm going to share this document. Right now, any document that you create is automatically private, but I want to make it so that we can all here work on this document. I'm going to change this now where it says private, anyone with the link. And I'm going to give you the link. See the other choices that I have here. I could have it just because I'm using my own domain. I could just make it so that people that had a ggatin domain name could use this. So my wife is the only other person that has a ggatin domain name. So when we're working on private documents, or like our will or financial planning, we want stuff that just is within our domain. We don't want to have that on the internet. Well, that works there. But in this case, I want to make sure that I don't necessarily want it public on the web, although I don't care in this case because we're just fooling around. But I'm going to make it so that anyone with the link. So if you have the link, and you will, you can share in this. So it produces the link for me, already highlighted, so I can just go Control-C. And I'm going to go down to Skype, and I'm going to put it in our conversation. Oh, I see Steve checked in, good. So if you click that link, go to Skype, click that link. How will I know if you clicked that link? I know 2 people have already clicked that link. Four people. Hello. Say something. Could help if I type. Nobody say anything. Oh, eh? Oh, on your phone, yeah. Just go on your thing there.
From Skype? How do we do it from computer?
Isn't there Skype on that desktop computer? I thought they had them all set up on there.
No Skype.
Okay, sorry, I forgot to change that. So now I have to go here where it says anyone with the link can view. I want to make it so that anyone with the link can edit comment. I'm gonna make it so that you can edit it. You can actually change this document. Okay, now try it again. Did you find it? Where else can that? Okay, let me go put this on the blog then. That might be another place where we can have this link. I like Skype because it's easy to do and almost as a text chat thing, but I'll put it on the blog here. I'll put it on today's agenda. Where's that? It should be changed. It shouldn't be view only anymore, so you should be able to refresh it. Okay, if you go to the blog now, if you click this link, if you don't have Skype, you should be able to get at it from this link as well. Okay, good. People are adding stuff. I see here there's 4 people in this space because you can see their icons. As people join this document, more icons join on here. So now there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Anybody having trouble getting into it? Can you go to the blog, or are you on Skype? Or?
I'm on Skype and you told me to click on this.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah. And if you click on it,
Why is this saying that?
oh, okay, yeah. So download the app, get the app.
I already did.
Oh, you have it? Okay, well then just send it. Oh, take the pencil.
I already downloaded Yeah, see, it's downloaded.
So go on here.
So what's the highlight, where are we going?
You're gonna go to that document that we're. You actually, you just highlight that, copy that link, and open up another tab. Yep, so you'll be one of the editors of this document. You in it? Just so I add something on there. So say, for example, we were having the task was develop a collaborative lesson. And I said, anybody got any ideas? Put them in here. What's that? Oh, framework system? Yeah. So that's your group. Actually, we do 5.
I like.
Yeah. Oh, that's yours. Okay, we'll go to mine, do 5. Yeah, that's it, I think. Just put it on the bit. Yeah. It's not a hot one, but you have to copy. There shouldn't be a hot one.
Oh, yeah.
What subject area? Let's do it together. Let's collaborate on a lesson. What subject area? I don't see any subject area suggested yet. Science. Right on. Anonymous Walrus has suggested grade 8 science. Right on, that's good. Grade 8 science, so that gives us 2 clues that we need, right? We need the subject area and we need the level, okay? Now, somebody else suggests the general learning objective within grade 8 science. Oh my God, where do we find that? Fortunately, this guy's put the link, and you've all put the link at the top of your web pages, I think. Go to science, go to curriculum documents. We're going to grade 8, and we'll look at the framework of outcomes. And grade 8, we said specific learning outcomes for grade 8 science are here. Which specific learning? Well, let's start with general learning objectives from grade 8 science. Which one are we going to use? And remember, we're going to try and use a collaborative approach to learning this, right? So it's got to be something that we can learn collaboratively, right? What does that mean, collaboratively again? Together. So we're working on a common output, right? We're working together for a common purpose, not working together for an individual purpose, but working together for a common purpose, which is what we're actually doing, right? We're trying to collaborate on building a lesson plan for grade 8 science, okay? So what in science would lead us to that sort of, would be useful to use collaboration for? I don't know. Yeah, some of this you're going to have to use your imagination to and plan for how you do it. If we said something like, I don't know, scientific inquiry, just for fun. Then drill down within scientific inquiry. What actual specific learning outcome do we want to use a collaborative learning lesson to accomplish? Okay. And pick out, here's the general learning objective in this case, GLO A4. Specific learning objective, 809C, demonstrate confidence in their ability to carry out investigations. Well, that's actually from GLO C5. But could we do that in a collaborative activity, web-based collaborative activity? Yeah, probably. It depends how you approach it, what your expectations are. Again, now we also have to consider the ICT continuum. What do we have to consider in the ICT continuum? The tasks, right? Is it gather information? Is it produce to show understanding? Is it, which one of those things are we going to expect people to do, accomplish in this particular lesson? And then grade 8, what level of the Bloom's taxonomy is involved here? What should be our expectation of the learners in grade 8? Should it be apply, analyze, evaluate, depending on what system that you're using? What expectation should we have for these guys? So,
Well, aren't you gonna want that for every?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, every lesson that you plan,
Yeah.
you're going to be considering all of these things for each lesson that you plan. Although, as I said, again, if once you get a systematic approach to this, it makes your life a lot easier, because you just go and fill in the blanks. So yeah, it's and you're probably going to teach science every day for 3 months, right? So you can just work your way through as you're developing your lessons each day. But you still need to develop your lessons on an individual daily basis, right? Every day is going to be a different lesson. So, but if you get systematic about it, you can cover a lot of ground in a big hurry. So, especially if you use web-based tools like this. Hey, I said I was going to stop a little sooner today and just let people actually get started on their own lessons, and that's what I hope to do too throughout the week. I'm going to introduce the technology, introduce the concept, and then hopefully give you a chance to work on it before the end of the class. With coaching, if you want me to give you a hand, that's fine, or just some time to do it. So again, if you can get stuff done in the class, that's good. You can work at home, that's also good, that's fine. But yeah, it's a little easier when I'm available for coaching. Although, again, I'm also available for coaching just about any time you want through the day. Remember how to book an appointment with me? on my webpage, click on book an appointment, puts you right in my calendar. We're all connected on Skype now, and you've seen how that works. If you're up on Skype from home and you want to connect with me and want to show me your desktop, you can actually show me your desktop, and I can walk you through different things if you're trying to sort things out. So. Questions or comments on today's material? And at least the second half of this should be, I think it'd be in a YouTube video. It should be on the webpage as soon as we're done here. So
your lesson can be on any subject?
Yeah, so, but pick something that you think you might be interested in teaching, right? Or you expect to teach, just for your own sake too, and it'll be something that you can use down the road. So yeah. I'd encourage you to explore a few different areas, because you never know. You might think that you're going to go teaching French, but they need a history teacher, you know, so. Or so, were you able to watch the video yet? Well, you haven't had a chance to watch the video yet from last day? Okay. You want to watch that because we went through a fair bit of stuff getting this blog set up here for what we're doing here for this course. So see if you can catch up on that. If you can't, let me know. Whoever else missed it too, don't hesitate to give me a shout and catch you up.
But they all have the same thing. Yeah. Well, I need to save it.
Sorry?
The MindMeister,
Yeah.
after we do it?
Yeah, on your own MindMeister, yeah.
Okay, because I've never really done one before.
Okay.
I'm just,
Sure, yeah, so that's
like
good.
I've never been a teacher and.
Yeah, no, that's fine. No, that's
Okay.
why you're here.
So the other thing, I want to tell you about is.
Yeah. What's that?
Between this time and this time, your password shows on that.
Oh, was right. Which
Yeah.
password for
I don't know
MindMeister?
what you were doing there, yeah.
Oh,
You went
okay.
to the I and then it shows, and that's gonna be a video on there.
Oh, okay, I think it was my password. Oh, it was my password for MindMeister.
Yeah. so I
Okay,
don't know
thanks.
if you
I'll
care or
change it.
not,
No, not so much on that. If you saw the password to my
No,
my
not that
whole
way.
password account, that'd be different, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if you want to log into my MyMeister account, that's good. I'll change it though, I will. That's good, thank you for letting me know.
But keep the video on there.
Oh, yeah, yeah, you know what? In fact, maybe I'll use that as a little example, because you can go into videos and you can edit the videos. You actually blur things on a video. So I'll do that. See if that helps. Then I'll go change my password.
Yeah. I see that. You watched it? I didn't watch it. It was weird.